Hi, I'm Anna. I'm an editorial intern at Little Steps Asia. I currently am going into my second year at Pomona College in California in the US.
Lexi?
Hi everyone, I'm Lexi. I'm the other editorial intern. I'm currently also going to my second year at Oxford University in the UK.
Rohan?
Hi, my name's Rohan. I'm a third year university student at BU, that's Boston University, and I am a marketing intern at Little Steps.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This live is just to hear more about your experiences today, about how coronavirus has affected you guys and your university life. Me, myself, I'm also a university student that just graduated from the UK, and I'm back now, but I had to finish my final year, my final term in my final year in Hong Kong because I had to come back early. So there are just a few questions that everyone was wondering. So when were you requested to leave university, and did they give you a detailed explanation? Anna, do you want to start off with your experience?
Yeah, sure. So my college told us that we had to leave around mid March, early to mid March. And so we had a few days' notice where we had to pack up all of our things in our dorms and then basically all move off campus because they couldn't hold us there they couldn't have us there anymore. And so I was really lucky that instead of having to come back here and deal with the terrible time difference from the west coast of the US to Hong Kong, I got to go and live in Canada with my brother. Um, and so my moving out process was pretty straightforward. I just had to pack up all my things, put some stuff in storage, and then fly up to Canada, where I then finished the rest of my semester. Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Lexi? How was the experience for you?
Well, mine was a little interesting. Oxford University terms finished quite early in comparison to a lot of other UK university terms. So I'd already actually finished my second term and was back here in Hong Kong. And so for me, it was a process of over the holidays, there was a lot of uncertainty as to whether we were actually going to be allowed back. So I wasn't really so much sent home as kept home in that sense. But it was quite unclear for quite a while. There were initially some ideas of only some students going back, where would we all stay, and all that sort of stuff. But eventually we ended up getting a relatively detailed explanation, but it took quite a while to get one.
Okay. And how about you, Rohan? How was your experience?
So for us, actually, around March the 15th, we were told that we can't come back to campus, but it was spring break time and I hadn't exactly traveled for my holidays. So I ended up staying back for an extra 2 weeks because I couldn't find a flight back home. But we were told that we can leave our stuff back in our accommodation on campus, and they would pay for our storage. So in all, it was a pretty smooth thing where I would just leave my stuff there, I'd come back here. But there's been a lot of uncertainty about going back with the model they've adapted. That we were supposed to initially return compulsorily to follow our visa guidelines, but that's been waived now. So I'm probably not going to go back because there's no flights back out of here. But it's been pretty smooth for me, doing online classes, even with the time difference.
Okay. Thank you so much. And how about for you guys did you guys have 14-day quarantine in Hong Kong?
Yeah, so when I got back in end of May after my semester ended, I had to do a 2 week quarantine in a hotel here in Hong Kong, and it was it was okay. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Um, it was the hotels in Hong Kong. A lot of them are doing a really great job accommodating for all the people who have to quarantine when they get back. So I was really impressed by uh, this kind of the service that we got, even though we weren't allowed to meet anyone. There was like a table outside my room where they put things that I ordered in, or they put things that my parents wanted me to have for the 2 weeks. So that was relatively easy. Yeah, so it wasn't that fun being alone, but I think it was worth it and very well handled in Hong Kong, I think.
Yeah, I've heard about that from a lot of people as well. How about your university? How about working from the time difference that you had? Obviously, now that you're in Hong Kong compared to the US for Rohan and Anna, and for the UK, Lexi?
Well, for me, the time difference is quite intense. You know, UK's 8 hours time difference with Hong Kong, and there have been, generally speaking, quite good, because it just meant that I was able to talk to my tutors and to my professors and say, look, this is the issue. And luckily, because Oxford tends to do quite small groups of classes anyway, it wasn't like I was being inconveniencing 100 people in a lecture hall. All lectures were instead recorded in advance, and then any small group classes we tried to schedule at a reasonable time for me, because I was the only one with a time difference in my class. But there were a couple of times where I ended up having tutorials at sort of 9 p.m, 10 p.m. Our time, which was a little difficult.
Yeah, understandable. How about for you, Rohan?
Well, for me, I had all my classes in the afternoon in Boston, so I had classes pretty much all night over here. So I'd have classes from like 11 p.m. all the way to like 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. some days. But I struggled a lot initially, but by the end I got used to it, because for the first
Yeah.
2 weeks it was just me, my classes, my room. I couldn't really go out anywhere, so I just got used to it, and now I'm just used to staying up late for classes. So it wasn't too bad for
Yeah.
me, honestly. It was a bit inconvenient having to do exams at like 3 in the morning sometimes, but beyond that, it wasn't honestly that bad for me.
Well, apart from the time differences that may have caused a bit of distress for you guys, did you find anything that was actually particularly rewarding from the situation? Maybe getting back to your family really quick, or just feeling more safe in Hong Kong? What were your experiences on that?
So I thought, aside from all the challenges with doing online school, I thought that it really helped me kind of improve my like studying techniques, and also um, my like working habits, because I was no longer in a university setting with all my friends, so I naturally became more productive, which I thought was very interesting, because I didn't have much else to do other than to actually do my schoolwork. And so I think it really helped me understand how I like to work best, and kind of helped me relax a bit more away from kind of the stressful university dorm environment.
Yeah. So we've got a question from one of our viewers. Have your universities implemented new safety measurements for your return? I know a lot of parents might also be thinking about this, and maybe for their children going to university the next academic year, starting in September or October. How about your universities? Have they said anything? Have they emailed you about how next semester will work?
So for me, BU's had a bunch of webinars about going back, and we can go back if we want to. Well, we're gonna have bi-weekly testing for COVID. We also can't leave like our rooms to go meet people casually, and we're gonna have classes in smaller groups. So like they'll be split into groups of two. So if you have class on Tuesday and Thursday, you'd have to go on Tuesday or Thursday. The gyms have been restricted on our campus, and the dining hall's also been restricted. So it's pretty strict over there, as it is in Hong Kong, more or less. But we can go back if things all stay safe between now and the end of August.
Okay, amazing. How about you, Lexi? Can you give us your UK perspective on this?
Well, from my understanding, most UK universities, aside from some London universities, are all returning or planning to return to term. For me in particular, there have been certain measures put in place. Lectures will all be online and recorded, so there won't be large lecture halls. Small group classes that we normally have anyway, people will be required to wear face masks during them, and sort of more social university gatherings have also been restricted. A lot of clubs have been restricted, so hockey or netball or something isn't happening so much.
Yeah, okay. How about you, Anna? I know that you're on a different coast to Rohan. So how about you? How's your university implemented safety measures for next academic year?
Yeah, so my college has actually decided not to open for the fall, so for the next semester. So nobody is going back on campus. And I think this was paired with the increased amount of cases recently in California in the US. And so our president decided that none of us were going to go back and we were going to have online instruction for the fall. And so obviously this is pretty upsetting, but I think in the long run it is a good decision to not bring everybody back or anybody back. And so I will actually be moving yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And so another question that a lot of people had was, do you feel like online lectures are the same level or the same caliber as real lectures, like real face-to-face lectures? Do you think it's better because you can go back and see the recording of the online lectures rather than sitting in a hall and writing down stuff?
Well, I think online lectures are online lectures are better, but online learning may not necessarily be better because you can watch the lecture in bits and pieces like along today. As opposed to having to sit through like a 3-hour lecture in one go, you could maybe watch an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, and then an hour in the evening and get it done like slowly, which is definitely better for students with shorter memory spans or attention spans rather. My bad. So it is better in that sense, but it might not lead to better learning because students could just not pay attention because they're on the laptop then, and it's a whole other set of problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Rohan. I'm a student with learning disabilities, and so as part of those, my university does actually provide me with recordings of lectures anyway. So for me, the lectures haven't really changed from sort of normal term to now, but the classes have been really tough. It's difficult to get the sort of interaction with my teachers that I was able to before. And the feedback that I often get on my work isn't able to be as detailed because, it's just like an email as opposed to a sit-down conversation that might last half an hour. It's a lot more informative, and I feel like it's more difficult for me to get the same level of support that I would do normally for online teaching.
Yeah. How about you, Anna?
I agree with Rohan. I think that it's really helpful that you can go through the lectures yourself and kind of take it at your own pace if they're recorded. And I think that really helps with learning, just so if you might have missed something in the live lecture, you can go back to it and that kind of thing. But I do also agree with Lexi. It's hard to get a similar amount of support from your teachers just solely through email because it's a bit harder to organize, like, for example, Zoom meetings or video calls with them. But I would say that online learning, I mean, it does have its pros and cons, but overall, I think all the schools are trying their best to make it equally as useful and equally as engaging as like live learning.
Yeah. We've got another question from one of our viewers, and it's, has anyone considered taking a year out? Any of you guys?
So I think a week ago, when my flight got cancelled again by Cathay, I was just really annoyed. I was just gonna take a semester off if it meant avoiding online classes because it is a bit easier, but I'm not a fan of online learning in general. And I was considering taking a semester off, getting a job, and just staying back in Hong Kong. But the paperwork for that was just too tedious, so I decided not to. But yeah, I definitely did consider an option of taking a semester away from college.
Yeah, me personally, I thought really hard about taking a full gap year and also taking a full gap semester purely because my school isn't going back on campus next semester, and also we don't know if we're going to get to go back in the spring either. And so I thought about not doing school simply because it almost feels like I could be doing something more worthwhile in that sense if I'm not there for a whole year. but I ultimately decided that I wanted to kind of stay on track and keep taking classes and keep going to school, because I do love being at school and taking those classes from the professors. But if we don't go back in the spring, I think I'm going to seriously consider taking that semester off, just because I don't want to do another semester of not being on campus and not and doing online learning.
Yeah, definitely. How about you, Lexi?
Well, I personally didn't think about rusticating, which is taking a year out at Oxford, because I'm doing English and French, so I'm doing a 4-year degree, which is unusual in the UK, and I didn't really want to add an extra year on top of that. And also because the two languages that I am studying, English and French, are not quite so prevalent here in Hong Kong. Even if I were to take a year out, there's not so many sort of, as Hannah was saying, worthwhile things to do here for me. So I decided to just sort of stick with it. But I certainly did have friends in the UK and at university who were thinking about it. One of my flatmates actually was seriously thinking about it, which was going to cause a bit of trouble for our flat. But she ended up staying. So I think a lot of people at UK universities, if they have the option to go back and continue university, a lot of people are trying to take that option, I think. But for people applying, people entering university for the first time, I would not be surprised to see a lot of people taking gap years.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Lexi. And thank you, Nikki, for this question. We hope that we answered your question well. So another concern that many students and their parents have is about tuition fees. What do you think about the current demands placed by students about recouping tuition fees? Do you think it's a fair demand? What do you think about this, Anna?
So what my school has done is that they have taken away room and board fees, because obviously we won't be on campus, but tuition fees are going to stay the same. I think that it's difficult because the schools are promising that the online education will be equally as good as live education, and it'll be harder to determine this semester or this upcoming semester if that'll be true, simply because a lot of the professors or all of the professors will have had more time to prep for online classes rather than just being thrown into it when we all had to leave last semester. And so I think it is fair that a lot of parents and students want tuition to be decreased or recouped. It's difficult to determine what the quality of our education will be like at this point, simply because we've never done something exactly like it before, I think.
I agree with you, Anna. And I did see that for a lot of universities, and indeed mine as well, they have taken away those accommodation fees. As you said, room and board stuff, you're not having to pay for food and things like that. But I know that a couple of the grants that people are getting in order to pay for accommodation that are from benefactors or from funds and charities and stuff like that. I know a couple of people who have had that taken away from them because the grant owners are saying, oh no, you're not paying for the full university experience, so we're not going to give it to you, which is really tough. And also, for people who are lesser financial means, having to pay that super intense level of academic fees could be really detrimental, especially with the economic hardship of COVID anyway. What about you, Rohan?
Well, when we pay, I'll look at it from a business perspective. When we pay for tuition, we expect something in return, right? So they're doing their job and they're getting paid for it. But while the results might be better for online learning, the quality of education and the gain for students as a whole might not be as good. So I don't necessarily agree with paying full tuition for an online semester. And in my opinion, it could cut down to 60% of what it normally would be, because it's not fair to even to some students who are stuck back at home, who might not have frequent access to internet, who can't reach out to their professors as frequently. They could be paying full tuition but not getting the same level of attention as someone who is maybe in America but not on campus. So I definitely think it should be a reduced tuition for everyone.
Yeah, understandably. How about what do you guys miss the most about not being able to go on campus? Is it the societies? Is it the actual experience of university, living in halls or with your friends? What is it exactly? And do you actually think it's a really big difference?
Well, for me, it's actually a bit silly. I had this one boxing gym that I would go to 3 times a week, and I missed that the most. I think about being in uni. Between that and just being, I guess, by myself, with just my friends, it's always fun. Just seeing what life has to offer when you're not at home. So I
Yeah.
just missed it. Like, I guess the independence a bit, for sure.
Yep, for me as well, definitely. How about you, Anna?
I think that I miss my friends the most, probably because a lot of them, they're still in the US, and they're Americans, so they've stayed there. And so, although video chatting and calling is an option, it's still kind of sad that we're not all together. Um, yeah, so I miss my friends a lot. I just miss walking around in the town because that was a big part of my life, walking around, trying new restaurants, trying new foods, that kind of thing. And so having those kind of experiences, I also miss that.
Yeah, because the university is not just about the academic, but it's also the actual full experience that you get with it. How about you, Lexi?
I think a similar story to Anna. A lot of my uni mates are also based in the UK, so not being able to see them is sometimes tough. But I think also because Oxford terms are so short, the societies, the social life is quite intense in that sense. And so I do a lot of drama, a lot of creative arts and stuff like that, not being able to see everyone in the societies. I was supposed to be watching a couple of plays this term, and summer's always the fun term. Like summer's always the fun time to be at uni. So it was kind of sad to miss out on the sun and the lack of rain in the UK. But generally, I think we've managed to do a pretty good job of still keeping in touch.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. And thank you guys so much for just sharing your experience and everything. Thank you so much. So we're going to wrap it up now. And thank you guys so much for joining our lives, all of our viewers. And do we have any last questions? Let me just look at the comment section. Okay, I think that's it for today. But thank you guys so much for joining in, and thank you everyone for answering the questions. Remember that Little Steps Asia is the go-to resource for families in Asia. And remember to like us on our Facebook page just to have, just so that you get reminded when we go live. And remember to sign up to our newsletter so that you can keep in the go for your country and keep up to the latest trends. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.